The controversy surrounding the killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi continues. He was murdered in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. CIA sources have said that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman ordered the killing, but the Trump administration doubts that assessment. President Trump spoke briefly with Salman at the G20 summit, reportedly exchanging pleasantries. Here's what Defense Secretary General Mattis had to say this weekend.
Accountability for the murder of Khashoggi stands alone. It is distinct from any other factors going on. However, it is integral to our relationship with Saudi. Right now, we do not have a smoking gun. Except for the last 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen, I have seen all the intelligence we have. We do not have a smoking gun that the Crown Prince was involved.
However, the Washington Post now reports that Mohammed bin Salman exchanged messages with an aide alleged to have overseen the killing of Khashoggi. Intelligence and national security reporter Shane Harris co-wrote that report and joins us now. Shane, thank you so much for being with us. What further details are there about the communications between Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and this aide? And is there enough evidence that could be a game changer here?
Well, I think you heard Secretary Mattis say it's not a smoking gun, and what we understand is that the content of these messages between Mohammed bin Salman and his aide may not be known. We certainly don't know them. It's not clear the CIA knows them as well. But what they do establish is that these two men were communicating in the hours before and after Khashoggi was killed inside the consulate on October 2nd, raising the question of what else might they be talking about. I mean, that's an awful lot of messages we think that were exchanged in this period. We also know from our previous reporting that someone who was a member of this hit team inside the consulate also made a call to this individual, this aide that Mohammed bin Salman was talking to on the day of the killing, letting him know in effect that the operation had been taken care of. So when you put this together, the CIA is reaching this assessment that the Crown Prince was likely involved. The fact that there's not a smoking gun, as Secretary Mattis said, suggests that there's not literally a recording of a phone call in which the Crown Prince says do it, or perhaps a text message in which he says to do it, but the preponderance of the evidence points in his direction.
Right, sort of at what point do you say that all of this evidence equals a smoking gun or not? So CIA Director Gina Haspel was not at the briefing on Capitol Hill last week. Is this controversy going to continue until Congress hears from her?
Well, I think it will, for sure, and there's a lot of pressure on her to testify even as soon as this week to come up on the Hill and brief lawmakers on what the CIA has found. CIA officials have already gone up to Capitol Hill and briefed them, but I think people want to hear this directly from Gina Haspel. I imagine one thing that she might try to explain to them is that the CIA doesn't really deal in terms of smoking guns. They gather up all of the information, they sort of tell you where they think that it's pointing, but this isn't like a criminal procedure where you're going to trial and looking for evidence beyond a shadow of a doubt that someone, for instance, is guilty of plotting to murder someone. It's information that's gathered for the purposes of policymakers like the president to decide what to do about it. And so Haspel finds herself sort of stuck in the middle here of representing an agency that is just there to provide information to policymakers and a White House that does not want really to hear what she has to say, I think, and lawmakers, I think, probably wanting her to more forcefully come out and talk about what the agency knows.
Right, and her role is simply to gather the information and present it, and Congress wants a little bit more than that at this point. So what pressure then is the administration under to roll out more punishment against the Saudis?
I think pretty significantly under pressure, and we saw a hint of this last week when there was this rebuke really in the Senate, a clear majority of senators moving to support a resolution to withdraw U.S. support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen, which has gone on now for several years and has caused this just almost unimaginable humanitarian crisis. That is a war that the U.S. supports through intelligence support and through military equipment. The fact that so many Republicans were willing to join in that tells me that the pressure is really mounting on the White House to do something more than what the president has done, which is effectively to shrug and say, in his words, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, in regards to the Crown Prince. And I think some lawmakers think the president's distorting what the CIA has told him.
Right. To your point, I mean, Senator Lindsey Graham was very clear about where he stood on this and what he wants to see happen. So it'll be interesting to see, with members of his own party so vociferously opposing a lack of action, where the president goes next. Would you predict that the president will take some kind of harder action against the Crown Prince?
It's difficult to see that he would, to be honest. I mean, he really has dug in his heels on this and made very clear that he believes that the question of whether or not Mohammed bin Salman was responsible for this murder is maybe an issue a question that can never be answered. To see his Secretary of Defense essentially backing him up on that this weekend really tells me that the White House is not budging. At least that the Congress hasn't marshaled sufficient pressure to make him move and change his mind.
All right, Shane Harris of the Washington Post. Shane, thank you for your time.
Thank you.